everybody, Brian from the Cabinet Joint here. Not an assembly video. We're going to talk about quarter sawn and rift sawn oak as a wood species. We're doing an awful lot with quarter sawn and rift sawn right now, getting away from the old, what we call flat sawn oak that our grandparents and parents had in their kitchens. So I want to talk about the differences, some of the things to be aware of if you're planning on ordering that for your project. Let's start with what we know as flat sawn or traditional red oak. This door doesn't do a great job of exhibiting it, but you can see these cathedral rings, the growth rings in a cathedral manner, both top and bottom. That kind, and the fat, heavy grain up here, that is really kind of the hallmark of the original oak we used to see, especially back in the 50s and 60s when we had wider boards to work with. Those cathedrals could be really big. As trees have gotten smaller because we're harvesting so many, these panel staves are getting smaller, so you're not seeing the rings as big, but they're still there. And this is not what people are wanting right now. They're wanting very straight, linear looking grains in the oak. And we can do that with quarter sawn and rift sawn, but there's things to be aware of. And that's what I want to talk about now. So let's talk about how rift sawn and quarter sawn are harvested as opposed to flat sawn. This is my horrible sketch. You're going to see a much better picture in the corner of your screen. But I want to talk through how the logs are harvested and why that drives the price and the grading of this lumber. So this bottom section of the log represents traditional flat sawn. They run a log, this is the end of the log, so the growth rings are running like this. They're running the log through a saw and they're cutting them into planks. That's whatever comes off the saw comes off the saw. Pretty much everything yields. You're going to have heartwood and sapwood, that kind of thing, but pretty much everything out of that log is yielded for flooring or cabinetry or whatever. You get into quarter sawn and rift sawn, which I'm showing up here, and all of a sudden not everything can be used. So my growth rings are running this way, which means it's very straight. I don't have the grain coming into and out of the same piece of wood, which is where the rings you're cutting are getting that cathedral-y look. Here with quarter sawn, they're cutting the log into quarters. They're taking that quarter of the log and then sliding that through the saw on a quarter. So you can see these lines represent the planks of the quarter sawn, and pretty much everything in there can be used as long as it's not a nasty knot or whatever, but it doesn't yield near as well as flat sawn. Rift sawn is even worse. These bands here represent the 5 or 6 or 7 pieces you could actually yield out of that quarter. The rest is waste. So rift sawn is actually going this way with quarter sawn as more traditional diagonals. Horrible yield on these, which drives the price up. Just not good yields at all. What differentiates the look of quarter sawn versus rift sawn is these worm tracks. So let me get this out of the way. It will show you a close-up so you can see it, but I got some really heavy ones here. This veneer panel has tons of them. It's called modular ray, and basically they're very dense parts of the wood. I don't know why it comes out in quarter sawn. I'm not that much of a lumber guy, but with the quarter sawn, these don't take stain near as well and can really stand off of a finished door, especially a darkly finished door. So quarter sawn has some of that, and because of the variability, you can get a lot in one door and almost none in another door, or very little in another quarter sawn door. People don't tend to like quarter sawn as much as rift. Rift is almost the exact same, very straight grain. None of this cathedral, very, very straight grain, but you don't have the worm tracking. So the rift sawn is what people seem to be after. So with that in mind, let's talk about some limitations. If you're okay with quarter sawn is available in red oak and white oak. So this is white oak. Red oak is a little pinker in tinge. That red will come through with some of the staining you do. But you can get quarter sawn in either white or red. So again, I got white oak quarter sawn here. Rift sawn is only available in white oak. Cannot get it in red oak. Okay, so if you want rift, you're going to get white oak. The other thing to understand with both quarter sawn and rift sawn as it pertains to Conestoga's cabinets is Conestoga deals with 4 or 5 standard species on their cabinets. Everything else they can do up to 16 species, even more if you want, through special designs, but they can't do the cabinet box, which means the finished side, the interiors. They only do those in red oak, cherry, hard maple, soft maple, or painted. So when you get into these odd oak cuts, we can't do white oak in the cabinet box. So you're going to get a white oak front frame, a white oak door, and you're going to have to skin the cabinet side with a skin. Rift sawn is not available in a skin, a 1/4 inch thick. They only do rift sawn in rift sawn white oak in 3/4 thick panels. So when you go to skin your cabinet side, it's going to be a quarter sawn skin, even if the face of your door is rift sawn. So you're going to get that modular ray fleck, and you may not like that. So you're going to be forced to do a door panel, or if it's inset, do a frame and a door assembly on the side of your cabinet. Your cabinet coach can talk you through all that. I'm just trying to make you aware that there are some limitations. If you're doing matching interiors, you can't even get that with either of these Red oak, you have a chance of just saying, I want a normal red oak matching interior, and you're going to get your interior of your box is going to have all the cathedral on your tops, bottoms, left and right side, and your back. The color will match, so if you're going to stain it in autumn or whatever, the color will match, but the graining won't look the same as your front frames and doors will, but at least your color's on. Since white oak is not available as a cabinet species, there's really nothing you can do to the interior of the cabinet that's going to match. You can maybe order it unfinished and paint it, or you can just stay away from matching interiors on your design altogether. That's where your cabinet coach and your designer can kind of guide you a little bit and say, hey, you're doing a wall open bookcase, you're doing a white oak rift sawn. We don't want to do that because the only thing we can do in the interior of the cabinet is like soft maple or hard maple, and it's not going to look right. So always consult your cabinet coach and your designer when you're dealing with these odd species, okay? Price, I hate to say it, but it's up there. It almost doubles. We've seen a real uptick in demand for both rift and quarter sawn, primarily a rift in the last couple of years. We actually had a shortage during COVID where you couldn't get it. Price and availability went through the roof. So I think it's come back in and settled a little bit, but always check with your cabinet coach on lead times. It's not going to be your standard 4 or 5 week lead time with these species. It's going to be longer. So all these things are things to keep in mind. If you have any questions, always call your cabinet coach. Give us a call. We'll be happy to talk you through it. 888-211-6482. And we really hope you use this. It's a beautiful wood. Brings back the kind of the reminiscence of like a stickly furniture look, who really popularized it back in the 50s. It's a beautiful wood to look at, but does have some limitations. So hope this helps you with your design. Thanks for watching.